So I know when we started this conversation that you were breaking your thoughts into part one, part two.
Yep.
So we're jumping into part two now,
Yep.
which is, part one is I'm getting ready to make the move, and part two is I'm making the move.
Yep.
So stay there, Lute. What are
Yep.
keep going down that road? What are some things that for leaders that are making the move, some essentials that they need to understand
Sure.
for success?
So I think the first thing is you've got to throw your ego out and you've got to be willing to ask a lot of questions. I know when I stepped into my first assistant principal role, I joke about it all the time, but I wore the carpet out between my office and my principal's office because I'm a guy. I'm a low ego guy. I'm very willing to go ask questions and say that I don't have the answer because I would much rather go figure out the right way to do it than throw something up against the wall and hope it sticks. Um, and kind of the advice that I give to people in this is they hired you because they think that you're qualified and they think that you're a good fit. They want you to be successful. And sometimes that means they want you to be successful in the systems that they already have in place, right? So you may have already been in that role somewhere else, but the context of the local school district is different, right? You're in a different place. So you need to understand what that looks like here, right? So be willing to ask questions to go understand how to do this work within the systems that they already have in place. The one exception to that would be if they've hired you and specifically said, hey, we need you to blow this up and put your own systems in place, because that happens. Doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. Hey, we need you to come in, put your own systems in place and run with it. But most of the time it's, hey, you're awesome. You're going to be a great fit here. You've got some great experience. Here's how we do things. And we need you to add to the way we do it and don't go rogue. So be willing to ask questions and figure out how to do things at the place where you're at now, right? This was a really big one for me. This next one, it's find a way to add value by leaning into your strengths. So I talk about my first year as an assistant principal. I had no idea what I was supposed to do. I remember asking people all the time, like, hey, does this get better? I don't understand why I just have to ask you how to do everything. And everybody told me, it's like, you just got to get through the first year. The first year, you're going to learn all the things. And the next year, you're going to have it and it's going to be great. And they were right. It got a lot better as I asked questions and learned from all those things. But I wasn't content with basically wasting a year trying to figure out how to do the job that I'd been hired to do. I knew there were things that I was good at. I knew there were things that I could contribute to in that moment. So that first year, while I was trying to figure out how to do that job, I went to my principal and said, hey, I'm learning how to do this, but I have something that I want to do. I just want to make sure that you're good with it before I do it. And it was a new-ish school. School had been open for 3 years. So I had a really young coaching staff. And that was my background, right? I felt like I had a pretty good grasp on the world of coaching. And we had a young, hungry coaching staff that was wanting to grow in the profession. And some of them were wanting to become head coaches. So I decided if I'm good at that and I understand that world, I'm going to create like a coaches leadership academy that I'm going to do once a month. And I'm going to bring these young coaches in and I'm going to get to pour into them while I'm learning how to do this role, because I know that I can add value right now in that way, because that's something that I'm good at. So, and it was great. And it was something we did right up until COVID hit. We did it for 3 years and it was great. We learned together. A bunch of those coaches moved up and they got promoted and they got head coaching jobs and it was awesome. But it was a way for me, one, to add value to my campus, but two, also to remind myself of, hey, they did hire me for a reason. They hired me because I'm good at some things, right? In the midst of the frustration of having to learn how to do all the other things, this gave me an opportunity to really excel at something early on in that transition, which I thought was great. And I was kind of reflecting on that. That's actually happened, and I didn't even realize it. It's happened several times, right? As I've transitioned from one place to the next in my current role. I'm pouring into what we call our guiding leadership team. And they kind of define the work of our collaborative teams on our campus. And the reason why that has become my niche at Prosper High School is because of my previous role as administrator. That was the work that I was doing there, right? And I've got more experience in that work than most of the people on our campus. So it was a natural transition for me to be able to start leaning into that work. There are other things that we do, but find the thing that you can lean into and say, hey, I've got really good experience here. Let me help with this thing. And, that happens every time we transition. You just have to kind of figure out what that is.
Oh, I love that. Let me pause for just a moment
Sure.
because you're just making my brain kick into gear. Um, One of the things I love about that, Lute, is that wherever you are in your leadership journey, whether you're new or whether you're experienced, you have a value to contribute to an organization that is unique to whatever your background is, whatever your inside. And I can only speak to my experience compared to yours. So, in my experience, I was a former writing teacher. I was a former language arts teacher. I was a creative writing instructor. I was an AP language instructor. So that was my background. My craft was teaching people how to communicate and how to write. And then I found myself as an assistant principal missing some of the use of that craft. And so what did I do? I started blogging. Yeah, I started creating a school newsletter. I started eventually making a podcast. And so those things became my outlet for ways for me to still exercise the craft that was enhancing the leadership that I was doing in those areas. And so, Lute, I love it that you're able to figure out, well, what is the value that I'm already strong in as I'm learning these other skill sets, so I can lean into that at the same time that I'm learning. Because I think when you do that, it also adds an amazing amount of joy to your work.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it keeps you connected to something that you're good at. And so whoever's listening to this right now, you have a skill set and a value that may be something that no one else on your team does. I mean, maybe your background is mathematics and you're an Excel spreadsheet master. That's not my strength. But your ability to analyze and communicate data might be something. I'm just throwing out ideas, but there's something that you have that's unique to your experience and background that's really great. Maybe you're strong in organizational leadership because you're a former music instructor and you know how to take chaos and make it beautiful. Well, how do you teach other people how to do those same things? So that's fantastic, Lute. So put your ego aside, admit you need help and ask questions, find a way to add value by leaning into your strengths.